Revealed, a woman's incredible escape from her ex unexpectedly hiding in the car of a mafia boss. The midnight air was thick with tension as Sarah bolted from the nightmare that had become her life. Shadows danced around her, the flickering neon lights of Chicago casting a haunting glow in the dark alleys. Behind her, the echo of Mark's furious voice rang out, a testament to the terror she escaped. With every step, panic clawed at her chest, but it was for Daniel, her bright-eyed, basketball-dreaming son, that she pushed forward. Then, in a moment that felt more like a scene from a movie than real life, she flung herself into the back seat of a sleek black car. The leather felt foreign beneath her, warm yet intimidating. She slid down, heart racing, only to lock eyes with Tony, a man with the kind of charisma and power that made her breath hitch. This was not a simple getaway. This was a leap into the unknown. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice smooth and layered like the city itself. I just need to get away," she stammered, no longer sure what safety even meant. His gaze softened, and in that instant, she saw more than a mafia boss. She saw a man trapped in his own world, just like her. As the car took off into the winding streets, a new kind of hope flickered inside her. Tony shared stories of his family, his loyalty, the love lingering in his voice that reminded her of her own unwavering commitment to Daniel. "We all have our battles to fight," he said, a mix of sympathy and understanding crossing his features. Sarah found herself nodding, a shared bond forming in that cramped space, two lives grappling with love and obligation. But outside, the storm was building. Mark was relentless. For every ounce of fear Sarah felt, he poured gasoline onto it, his anger igniting within the shadows as he dispatched his network to hunt her down. She could almost hear the whispers of his men in the dark corners of the streets. Yet, wrapped in the security of Tony's presence, Sarah began to believe in something greater than mere survival. She fought for Daniel's dream, refusing to let fear hold her back any longer. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Their connection deepened, and Sarah's fear began to soften into determination. She felt a warmth growing inside her, like a small flame fighting against the darkness. But as she glanced at Tony, a realization hit her: can you really trust a man like him? Inside her mind, a battle of loyalties waged, the man who sheltered her versus the father of her child who only brought pain. Time stopped as a message pinged on Tony's phone, the piercing sound of impending doom breaking through the fragile moment they shared. "It's Mark," Tony said. The name hung heavy in the air, a shroud of dread igniting panic deep in Sarah's stomach. "Can we protect what we love in a world so unforgiving?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Uncertainty loomed as they prepared to face it all head-on, both of them knowing that their fates intertwined. Would she find freedom, or had she just walked deeper into a trap? The car swerved sharply, a quick escape from the reality that lingered just outside the tinted windows. Sarah felt the pulse of the city around her, cars honking, the distant sound of sirens wafting through the air as if it were drawing nearer to them. Each second felt heavy, charged with anxiety and hope alike. "What do we do?" Sarah's voice broke through the stillness, her heart thundering in her chest. Tony's expression hardened, the lightness from earlier replaced by a steely resolve. He tightened his grip on the wheel, knuckles white against the dark leather, eyes scanning the streets. "We can't stick around here. I have a safe place we can go." "Safe?" She felt a flicker of sarcasm. "You mean somewhere your enemies can't find us, or somewhere they won't bother to look?" It wasn't that she doubted him much. She was just wary, caught between the devil she knew and the devil she didn't. He glanced back at her, the intensity in his gaze giving her pause. "My world isn't what you think it is. It's not all glamour and power. I deal with my share of monsters, too. His honesty felt like a double-edged sword, slicing through her lingering doubts yet leaving her exposed. And what makes you different from Mark? She didn't mean to sound accusatory, but the question hung heavily between them. He's your nightmare, Tony said quietly. And I might be your way out of it. The sincerity in his eyes made her heart ache. Could a man like him wrapped in the chaos of his own life give her the protection she craved? Just then, a shadow flickered past the window. The car's speed slowed and everything inside came to a tense halt. The vibrant city outside faded away, and for a heartbeat, she held her breath as realization struck. They were being cornered. Stay low, he ordered, momentarily glancing down an unfamiliar side street. It was then she heard the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps approaching. Anxiety surged through her veins. She ducked down, clutching the fabric of her jeans as she fought the urge to scream. Tony cursed under his breath, eyes fiery with focus as he rolled down the window just slightly. She could hear the snippets of the conversation outside, threats mingling with confusion, her name being mentioned in hushed, dangerous tones. Is she in there? One of Mark's men barked. We know she's close. Though she wanted to recoil, every fiber in her body urged her to listen. The threat was real. Her heart raced, knowing Mark didn't play games. What is he going to do? She whispered, panic knotted tight in her throat. Tony's expression darkened. Whatever it takes. Suddenly, the world around them was a swirl of chaos. The commotion outside grew louder, and they were thrust into a rush of adrenaline. Then, with a grunt, Tony slammed the gas pedal down, shooting forward like a bullet. As they barreled down the road, Sarah's heart thudded in time with the rising adrenaline. Everything began to blend into a blur: lights, shadows, distant voices calling after them. She couldn't ignore the tight grip twisting in her stomach, they were now in uncharted territory. She dared to look at Tony, whose jaw was set in determination, his eyes fierce and unyielding. Are you ready for this? He asked, an unexpected question that surprised her. Ready for what? This ride, or the storm we're about to face? She shot back, half joking but knowing the truth was more serious than that. A glimmer of emotion flashed across Tony's face, something raw and real. Both, he replied, voice steady. And in that moment, Sarah understood, the battle was not just against Mark but one of survival, trust, and reshaping their futures. Could she really escape not just her past, but also the pull that beckoned her towards chaos? What if the safety she sought was wrapped in the very person she feared? As they sped away, the line blurred between her past and a future she could only dream of. And the question loomed larger than ever, would she have the courage to face the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be? The car flew through the narrow street, the engine roaring like a wild beast. Every turn felt like a gamble, and Sarah held her breath, watching Tony's face as he navigated through the maze of alleys. They needed distance quickly. The world outside was a blur of red and yellow lights, a pulsating rhythm beating against her chest. Just keep your head down, Tony instructed, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. She felt the weight of his determination settling over her like a warm blanket, wrapping her in a fragile sense of safety. But fear still tightened its grip. That sense of security couldn't last. What if they find us? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, tinged with desperation. Tony's jaw clenched tighter. They won. I know these streets better than they do. With a quick glance, she wanted to offer him comfort, but how could she comfort someone trapped in his own shadow? The whole situation left her feeling torn. He was the man she was supposed to trust, yet he was pulling her deeper into this world of danger. Distant sirens wailed, each sound a reminder of their precarious situation. You know, I never wanted to get tangled up in all of this, she admitted, barely realizing her thoughts were spilling out. I thought, maybe, being with you would mean something else. Something normal. Tony let out a bitter laugh, a sound that twisted her stomach. Normal doesn't exist for me, Sarah. It never has. I only know how to survive. His words landed like stones. Was he really trying to carve a path of honesty through the darkness? Did that make him different from Mark, or just another reflection of the chaos she was trying to escape? A sudden jolt rocked the car, and her heart skipped. What was that? Panic clawed at her throat. Just a bump. Stay low. He called out, swerving to avoid a pothole. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, heightening her senses even further. The thought of being cornered again sent her mind racing. She needed to know what to do next, where to go. Tony, where are we headed? There's a building I own, a safe house. Just a few more blocks, he promised, eyes scanning the road ahead. As they turned another corner, a flash of headlights appeared behind them, sending a jolt of terror through her. Are we being followed? She gasped. No, he replied quickly, though she couldn't tell if he was lying to protect her or simply optimistic. Are you sure? Because if they find me, her voice trembled, images of Mark's rage flickering through her mind like a terrible film loop. Tony's expression softened, but there was an edge to his gaze that she hadn't seen before. You're not going back to him. I won't let that happen. His resolve struck a different chord. Maybe she could lean on him, let him bear some of her weight. The idea scared her more than anything. But the longer she clung to her past, the more she realized it might just drag her down. Do you really think you can protect me? She asked, vulnerability etched in every word. I know I can. Just trust me. Sarah felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something to hold on to. Okay, she breathed, reflecting on the dangerous trust she was placing in him. As they rounded one last corner, the atmosphere shifted. The lights from the safe house glimmered ahead like a beacon in the dark, yet another reminder of how deeply tied they were to this struggle. But even as they neared safety, doubt crept in. What lay ahead? Would their escape only lead them into deeper trouble? Tony halted the car in front of the unassuming building, quickly turning toward her. We're here. Ready? The tightness in her chest mixed with the adrenaline of what was to come. She wasn't just stepping into a new place, she was stepping into the unknown, the heart of danger and possibility, all intertwined. Let us do this, she replied, steeling herself against the swirling fears. But as they opened the car doors, the sound of screeching tires echoed behind them, and her heart sank. Were they really safe, or had this just been a temporary reprieve before? The storm hit. The line was drawn. Would their fight for freedom lead to a new path, or would the shadows of their past drag them back into darkness? Sarah stepped out of the car, her pulse racing as screeching tires sliced through the night. The blinding headlights behind them grew closer, illuminating Tony's intense gaze. We have to go now. He barked, urgency pulsing through his tone. She hesitated for a split second, torn between following him into the darkness of the safe house and the suffocating fear gripping her heart. But then she caught the flicker of headlights reflecting off glass, growing larger and more menacing. With a quick nod, she started moving. Tony grabbed her hand, pulling her through the doorway, his grip hard and reassuring. Inside, the cool air hit her like a wave, contrasting sharply with the heat of the chase. The dimly lit room felt eerily silent, save for the rushing buzz in her ears. Lock it behind us, he instructed, and she hurried to obey. The door clicked shut, sealing off the outside world. Transformation was instantaneous. The glimmer of hope they just felt was suffocated by the haunting reality of their predicament. Is this really a safe house? She whispered, her eyes scanning the sparse room filled with mismatched furniture. A small kitchen sat off to the side, and a threadbare couch faced a flickering television. Yes, but we can't stay long. They won't be far behind, Tony replied, moving swiftly to the window. He peeked through the slats of the blinds, his posture tense as he observed the street outside. What if they saw us? What now? Panic crept back into her voice, tightening its grip like a vice. They'll look for us at the car first. We have a few minutes, just stay low, he urged, still focused outside. In that moment, Sarah felt the fragility of their situation choke her like a noose. Just days ago, she had been left breathless by Mark's demands, feeling powerless and cornered. And now here she was, fighting for her freedom with a man who lived on the edge. Isn't this exactly what you wanted to escape from? She murmured, the words slipping from her lips without thought. His eyes flickered toward hers, and she could see a storm of emotion brewing. It doesn't have to be, he said, a steel resolve sharpening his tone. But if we don't stay smart, then yes, it will be just another cycle of chaos. Was this life always going to be defined by flights and fears? She could feel her breath hitching in her throat, the weight of uncertainty bearing down on her. Sensing her panic, Tony stepped closer. We'll find a way out. Together. His voice softened, but the intensity lingered in his gaze. I promise. Just then, a loud crashing sound echoed from the street outside. Shadows flitted past the window, and her stomach plummeted. The chase was on to them. Hide, Tony said urgently, motioning for her to get behind the couch. As she huddled there, the hard surface of the wood poking into her back, she could hear her heart thrumming loudly in her ears. He stayed near the window, grasping something from his jacket pocket, a sleek black pistol. The metallic glint in the dim light sent a wave of icy dread through her. Do you have to? She asked, her voice trembling, fearful yet strangely compelled by the tenderness she saw in him. He glanced back, a flicker of regret crossing his face. I have to protect you, Sarah. That's all that matters right now. And in that moment, everything crystallized. Survival, trust, and the promise of something better swirled in the air around them. Yet uncertainty loomed. What awaited them just beyond the door? The room felt suffocating, silence pressing in. She could almost feel the walls closing around them, the threat of danger lingering just outside. As if sensing their charged vulnerability, the door rattled ominously, or was it a signal that their time was running out? Could they really escape not just the men who haunted her past but the shadows they carried within? Her heart raced, and she felt the suffocating weight of their fates hanging in the balance. Would fear threaten to consume them, or could they carve out a new path amidst the chaos? And as Tony shifted closer to the door, his expression hardening with determination, she realized the next moments could change everything. The door rattled again, and Sarah's heart stopped. She held her breath, freezing behind the couch. The faint, heavy footsteps on the porch were like drumbeats in her chest. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing she could just vanish. Stay quiet, Tony whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. His eyes darted to the door, scanning for any sign of the intruder. The footsteps shuffled closer, and Sarah could feel the air in her lungs tightening. She could see Tony's jaw clench as he prepared himself for whatever was about to happen. Fear knotted in her stomach, a primal instinct urging her to run. But there was nowhere to go. Suddenly, the doorknob turned, and the door creaked open. A shadow loomed at the entrance, blocking the small wash of moonlight that seeped into the room. For a brief moment, time seemed to stretch, and the world outside faded away. Tony. A voice called from beyond the threshold, gravelly, yet taut with a sense of urgency. Are you in here? Sarah's heart sank. The voice belonged to Danny, Tony's old friend and a vital link in their plan to disappear. But she could hardly distinguish friend from foe at that moment. The way she clutched the couch's edge made her knuckles white. Get in here. Tony shouted, his tone both commanding and strained, though she could hear the underlying note of relief. The shadow stepped into the room, and Sarah's eyes widened as the figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a disheveled Danny. He had mud smeared across his face and leaves tangled in his hair, like a soldier returning from battle. Thank God I found you guys, he panted, his breath hitching. We don't have time. They're coming back. It's a setup, it's part of the deal. What deal? Tony snapped, pushing past his shock. Gio knows you knew you were at the car, Danny explained, his eyes darting nervously. And now he's got men combing the area. We can't risk staying here any longer. We need to move. Right now. Sarah felt a wave of nausea rise as she processed the implications. They were still being hunted, and the plan was spiraling further out of control. For a moment, her courage faltered, pooling beneath the weight of their circumstances. Where do we go? She asked, her voice trembling, trying to catch up with the chaos. Danny stepped closer, gesturing for them to follow. I found an old garage a few blocks away. It can hide us for a bit. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the best shot we got. Tony exchanged a quick glance with Sarah. Behind his determination, she could read a rising tide of worry. And you're sure it's safe? He asked. Danny nodded, but his expression said otherwise. Safer than here. With little time to weigh their options, Tony took her hand again. This time, the grip was even tighter, as he pulled her toward the back door. Let us move, he urged. And stay quiet. They stepped into the cool night air, the darkness enveloping them. It felt like stepping into an abyss, but the night hid their faces from the chaos they were escaping. As they darted down the narrow alley, panic surged. The moment they were out of sight of the house, Sarah's mind was racing with thoughts of Mark, the very man they were running from. Her fear pulled her back, but Tony's grip was steady, grounding her to the present. Just a little further, Tony whispered, urging her along. But just as Danny turned the corner, he froze, his entire body stiffening. What? Sarah whispered, scanning their surroundings, her pulse quickening again. There's someone up ahead, Danny hissed. In that instant, the hunt felt too close. They had run into danger again, and trust was a fragile thread holding them together. How much longer could they evade those hunting them? As she peered around Danny's shoulder, a cold sweat broke out on her brow. The shadows moved, but there was also something distinct glimmering in the dark, a flash of metal, the unmistakable outline of a weapon. And with that, Sarah realized, they had one last chance to fight for their lives. Would they be ready to face whatever awaited them in the street ahead? As the night buzzed with uncertainty, she inhaled deeply, preparing for the fight of her life. Tony's heart raced as he tightened his grip on Sarah's hand. The world around them blurred, the weight of everything pressing down. They couldn't move forward or back, it felt like being caught in a web, every way they turned was another trap. Stay low, he whispered, instinctively drawing Sarah closer, shielding her with his body. The glint of the weapon in the distance sent a jolt of icing through his veins. He didn't want to think of what would happen if it came to a fight. Danny, he said, barely able to keep the tremor out of his voice. Can we go around? Danny strained to listen, squinting into the darkness ahead. I think we might have to push through. The garage is just beyond that alley. Without another word, Danny slipped forward, taking the lead. The three of them moved like shadows, each step quiet and calculated. But the heartbeat of the night was deafening. Every rustle of leaves, every shift in the air felt like a countdown. Sarah's breath was quickening, matching the rhythm of her thoughts, visions of Mark, of the chaos he could bring into their lives. If they were still being hunted, then there was no telling how far he'd go to keep them in the web he spun. What if we run into them? Sarah whispered. Her tone was buried beneath layers of fear and determination. We have to keep moving, Tony said, his voice low and steady, though he could feel her desperation weighing against his composure. He glanced back at her, and for a fleeting moment, their eyes met. In that shared silence, a promise was made, a promise to fight together. Danny led them further from the streetlights, deeper into the shadows. Each step felt like pulling themselves deeper into the unknown. But somewhere past the blare of the world, something shifted. The sound of muffled voices echoed through the alley, growing closer, navigating the dark with the arrogance of predators in their home territory. Up here, Danny breathed, gesturing toward a narrow gap between two crumbling walls. They squeezed through the passage, the scent of damp earth enveloped them. Tony felt Sarah's fingers tremble in his grip. He wished he could wipe the fear from her brow, but his own heart was a frenzied beast. With each step further into the dark, hope and anxiety tangled like vines. The garage Danny mentioned loomed at the end of the path, old and creaking, a relic from another time. It had the potential to be a temporary haven, yet doubt gnawed at Tony. What awaited them inside? The atmosphere seemed heavy with secrets. "Get ready," Danny whispered, eyes darting around as they reached the door. He took a step back, allowing Tony to push it open. It creaked ominously, revealing a dusty interior half lit by a single flickering bulb. Overhead, rain tapped lightly. "Quick!" Danny urged, ushering them in. Tony felt Sarah squeeze his hand tighter as they stepped inside. It was a tight fit, and the dark corners felt alive, like eyes watching them. "Is this really safe?" Sarah said, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting Mark to spill into the room behind them. "It will have to be," Tony replied, forcing confidence he didn't feel. As they settled, Tony's instincts kicked in. "We need to barricade the door," he said. But as he looked around, the eeriness sunk in this place felt frozen in time, the air thick with memories of old fights and abandoned hopes. Suddenly, a sound disrupted their quiet. A low rumble, followed by a muffled thud, echoed from beyond the garage walls, pulling them back to reality. Was it the rumble of an engine? Had they been discovered? "Stay low," Danny warned again, his voice hoarse, casting nervous glances toward the door. Seconds dragged on like hours. Tension crackled in the air. If they had found them? Tony's mind raced. He had to protect Sarah. He had to find a way out of this alive. But just when he thought their plight had hit rock bottom, a familiar face appeared in the doorway, not a friend, but a ghost from the past who could change everything. "Tony." That whisper carried shadows deeper than the night itself. What did it mean that someone thought? They knew where to look. The time for hiding was about to end, and a harsh truth was about to unfold. The air thickened with uncertainty as the silhouette stepped into the faint light of the garage. Tony squinted, straining to make out the features. It felt like a ghost stepping forth from a long-buried memory, someone who shouldn't be here but was, carrying the weight of the past. Tony, the voice was shaky yet familiar, a shard of ice running down his spine. It was Laura, the one person he had hoped to never see again. "What are you doing here?" he asked, and even he could hear the harshness in his tone. His heart thudded loudly, an erratic drum that echoed his confusion and dread. God, I didn't think I'd find you like this." Her eyes darted to Sarah and Danny, who were frozen in disbelief. Laura stepped further into the room, the flickering light revealing a face that held both fear and desperation. "Get in the corner," Danny hissed, his instincts kicking in as he assessed the situation. He didn't trust Laura. He couldn't wait. Tony interrupted, stepping in front of Danny and raising his hands. "Let her talk. She came for a reason." But for Tony, the uncertainty felt suffocating. What could she possibly want? Laura took a step closer, her voice trembling. "I saw Mark, Tony. He's looking for you. I thought I could help." "Help?" Sarah echoed, her voice edged with skepticism. "You think we can trust you?" "Honestly, I don't know if you can. But it was either come to you or let him find me too. He's not just after you, he's hunting everyone connected to you." Tony clenched his fists. Memories of Laura's betrayal flooded back, the way she had turned against him when it mattered the most. Could he really believe that she was here out of anything other than self-preservation? "What do you know?" he demanded, his voice firm. "What did he say?" Laura took a deep breath, her shoulders shaking slightly as the weight of the truth settled upon her. He's been searching everywhere, looking for you, looking for clues to track you down. I overheard him talking last night. He plans to use everyone close to you as leverage. Friends, family. He'll spare no one to find you. Fear clawed at Tony's insides. You should have stayed away from him then. I thought I could protect myself, Laura said, desperation flaring in her eyes. But now I see I can't. He's too powerful. And when I realized how deep he was into this, I had to come. I needed to warn you. What could he possibly do with this information? Trust? Hardly, but time was of the essence. He felt the urgency to act. Getting to safety was their priority. How did you find us? Tony pressed, knowing the answer could decide their fate. I had a plan. I thought I'd be able to track you wherever you went. It was easier than you think to slip away from him. Her voice cracked, and with it, a hint of authentic emotion seeped through. I needed to see you, Tony. To explain, before it's too late. He's south getting close. I just wanted to help you. Before Tony could respond, a loud crash interrupted the tense standoff. The door rattled violently, shadows shifting outside as pounding footsteps approached. They found us. Danny shouted, pulling Sarah close. Get ready to move. Panic surged. What were they going to do now? They couldn't stay here, not with Mark. Whatever trust, however fleeting, hinged on a razor's edge. Out the back. Tony yelled, pointing to the narrow pathway that led away from the garage. We have to get out now. As the panic escalated, each heartbeat felt like a countdown. Ghosts from the past and the threat of a terrifying future collided in that cluttered space. Tony, please don't leave me behind, Laura's plea pierced through the chaos, reminding him of past decisions that had changed everything. Could he leave her? Could he afford to save himself at the risk of dragging them all down? The decision set fire to his chest. But before he could answer, the door burst open, and darkness engulfed them. What lay beyond those walls? Would they emerge unscathed, or was it the end of everything he was fighting for? The moment the door crashed open, the darkness surged in, swallowing the light whole. Adrenaline surged through Tony's veins, filling him with a primal instinct to survive. He glimpsed the imposing figure beyond the threshold, a silhouette framed by the dim light from the outside, and recognized the cold glint of a weapon in the intruder's hand. Run! Tony shouted, his voice booming over the chaos. He shoved Laura toward the narrow path that led out of the garage, feeling a mix of urgency and dread clawing at his insides. Danny grabbed Sarah's hand, tugging her along, but they hesitated, confusion painting their expressions. They shared a fleeting glance, a silent conversation that screamed fear and uncertainty. Go! Tony urged again, the sound echoing in the dark like a desperate prayer. He pushed past Laura, knowing there could be no hesitation. They had to get away. The moment they stepped into the narrow corridor, a thunderous crash resonated behind them, the intruder barreling into the garage, determined to pursue. Tony glanced back just in time to see the flash of a menacing grin, a face he desperately wished he could forget. Keep moving. He urged, panic rising in his throat. They sprinted down the path, the dust swirling around their feet, obscuring their escape. The air was thick with the scent of oil and metal, an unsettling reminder of their volatile situation. Each footfall echoed like a ticking clock, each breath was precious, and the weight of Laura's presence felt like a raw nerve. What was that? Danny's voice broke through the pounding of Tony's heart, the fear unmistakable. We can't let him catch us. We need to get to the car. Sarah panted, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting Mark to materialize behind them. Tony nodded, pushing his body harder, his mind racing over every possible route. They needed to get out of the area, to find safety, but the streets outside were no guarantee. Fear had a way of ghosting overhead, a constant reminder that danger lurked, always just beyond the edge of sight. As they reached the end of the corridor, Tony stopped, suddenly aware of a chilling possibility. Which way? He demanded, scanning the landscape outside. This way. Laura pointed left, and without thinking, he followed her lead. But doubt simmered just beneath the surface. Could they trust her not to lead them into another trap? Moving quickly, they ducked behind a stack of old crates, their breathing heavy and frantic. Tony glanced at Laura, uncertainty bubbling in his chest, mixing with frustration at her sudden reappearance. "Why should we trust you?" he hissed, his eyes narrowing. "You put us all at risk." "I had to come," she insisted, her voice trembling but resolute. "You don't know what he's capable of. I didn't want to bring this danger here. I thought if I could warn you enough." Danny interjected, scanning the area as they caught their breath. "We can't stay still. We need a plan." "Yes, but what kind of plan?" Sarah's voice was sharp with fear. "We can't just run blindly." Tony felt the pressure mount in his chest. They were cornered, and even though trust was a luxury they could no longer afford, their only chance lay in unity. "We need to split up. It's our best shot to confuse him. Laura, you, and Sarah go toward the cars down the street. Danny and I will make noise to draw him out." "Are you crazy?" Danny shot back, disbelief etched across his face. "It's the only way," Tony replied, conviction igniting within him. "This is the moment we decide whether we survive or let fear take us down. We stick together whenever we can, but I won't let Mark trap us like this." The silence that followed was thick, but it was shattered by the sound of footsteps approaching, echoing in the void. "Now!" Tony urged, and without another word, they bolted in opposite directions. As his feet pounded against the pavement, Tony glanced back, heart racing. Would they get out alive? Would he ever face Mark again? The answers evaded him like shadows in the night. And right there, in the chaos of their escape, an unexpected thought struck him. Laura's presence could mean more than betrayal. Could it mean redemption? The darkness swallowed him once more, but clarity loomed on the horizon. What did it mean for them to survive, now that the past had come back to haunt them? Would they stand united against their ghosts, or would trust shatter again before they found safety? The alley was a maze of shadows and uncertainty as Tony sprinted away, each breath a desperate gasp in the cool night air. His heart hammered like a drum, pushing him forward, driving adrenaline through his veins. The chorus of chaos thrummed almost in rhythm with the sound of his pounding footsteps. He turned around the corner and glanced back. Did he see a flicker of movement? The silhouette loomed closer. Mark was relentless. Fear gripped Tony tightly, but he forced himself to keep moving. If he stumbled now, it could mean everything. He skidded to a stop at the back of a rusty old truck, slipping into its shadow just as a sharp noise shattered the night. A gunshot. It rang out like a death knell, echoing off the walls and scraping Tony's insides. His stomach dropped, and he swallowed hard, reminding himself that Sarah, Laura, and Danny were still out there in the chaos. Peeking around the corner, he spotted Danny, still running. He was a few yards away, darting into a narrow side street. A sick twist of fear gripped Tony's heart again. If they split up without a plan, but they had no choice now. They were all taking the biggest risk to escape. "Danny!" Tony hissed, hoping his voice reached through the din. Danny slowed and turned, eyes wide with panic. "This is insane. You think we can just keep running?" Danny shouted back, glancing nervously over his shoulder, clearly afraid they were being hunted. "They'll find us if we don't," Tony yelled, taking a step closer. "We have to create a distraction." Danny's face tightened with doubt, but he nodded barely. "What's the plan?" As Tony's mind raced, he remembered the old abandoned warehouse they had stumbled past earlier. It was a relic of a time long forgotten, creaky and eerie, but it had to be useful now. "Let's send a signal. We can use the warehouse," Tony said, his heart racing faster now, fueled by adrenaline and hope. "We can set something on fire. Make some noise." It'll draw him in and give the others a chance to escape. Risky, Danny replied, skepticism evident in his tone. Yeah, but this is life or death. Tony retorted. He could almost feel Mark's presence lurking just out of view, a predator coiling for the strike. You in? Fine, Danny said reluctantly, a fierce glimmer of resolve flashing in his eyes. Let us do it. With their plan anchored in desperation, the two raced towards the warehouse, moving cautiously. The moon's light illuminated scattered debris and discarded memories of what this place must have been desolate and broken, much like their lives in that moment. When they reached the entrance, darkened windows loomed like blind eyes, and the thick air weighed heavily. You sure this is going to work? Danny asked again, glancing down the path where Mark could appear any second. I have to believe it will, Tony said, breathing deeply, grasping at the threads of determination keeping him focused. Let us find something we can use quick. They scrambled inside, scanning the empty expanse for anything that would take fire. A stack of brittle crates caught Tony's eye. Over here. He yelled, falling into a sudden rhythm of teamwork as they moved quickly. Just as they began to assemble a makeshift fire, the haunting sound of footsteps echoed from outside, rapid and approaching. Fatigue wrapped around Tony's limbs, but he forced himself to ignore it. He only had moments left. Nearly done. Danny grunted as he sparked a flint against dry wood, flames dancing to life. Let us move. We need to get out. Tony shouted, a new urgency fueling his courage. They exited just as the fire crackled behind them, spilling light out into the night. They sprinted through the shadows, ducking and weaving through alleys until they reached the main street. Then it hit him. The others. Backtrack. Tony urged, pushing them down a side alley lined with flickering streetlights. We need to get Laura and Sarah. What if Mark gets to them first? Danny argued, panting. We can't leave them. Tony insisted, fear driving him wild as he hit a dead end. He turned, his heart pounding, realizing time was running out. If they didn't regroup fast, everything would come crashing down. Their chances seemed impossibly slim as the weight of their choices loomed. They hunted for somewhere to hide, every creaking door and flaking wall telling them they weren't safe yet. Where could they find refuge when danger followed so closely? Could he truly trust Laura after everything? And just as the shadows shifted slightly, a chilling laugh echoed close. The hunt had begun. But who would end up as the hunted? The laughter echoed around Tony, sending shockwaves of dread splintering through his body. He had no time to second-guess himself now. This way. He barked at Danny, urgency electrifying his voice. They sprinted back the way they came, desperation propelling them forward. Do you think they've found Laura and Sarah? Danny panted, eyes wide with fear. Every second mattered. Every decision could be their last. Not if we can help it, Tony replied, resolve hardening with every stride. They needed to regroup, to stand together, even if trust felt like a haunting memory. They turned down another alley, the shadows wrapping around them like an old, familiar cloak. Their breaths came in sharp bursts. Tony peered around the corner, searching for any sign of Laura and Sarah. Flickering streetlights illuminated the path, but each shadow felt like potential danger. Over there. Danny gestured to a doorway that appeared slightly ajar, a flicker of hope igniting inside of him. We can hide in there. They dove inside, hearts pounding as they closed the door, cutting off the world outside. It was cramped, old boxes piled up against the walls. The musty air felt thick, yet it gave a sense of security from the chaos outside. What if they find us? Danny whispered, adrenaline still coursing through him. We'll figure it out, Tony replied, holding on to the hope that their friends had also evaded danger. Silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the sound of their frantic breathing. Minutes passed, each second stretching into eternity. Then, the faintest sound reached their ears, the soft creak of the door, followed by a familiar voice. Tony. Danny. Relief flooded Tony as Laura slipped quietly into the storeroom, followed closely by Sarah, both appearing out of breath but unharmed. "Thank God we found you," Sarah gasped, relief washing over her features. But as Tony looked into Laura's eyes, he couldn't shake the lingering doubts. "Did they follow you?" he asked. "No," Laura replied, her tone firm yet visibly shaken. "Mark didn't know where we went. But we have to get out, he'll figure it out soon." "Alright, what's the plan?" Danny questioned, shifting anxiously. "There's a back exit we can use," Laura said, her voice steadier now. "It leads to an alleyway that ends up near the docks. We can take a boat if we need to." "Good thinking." "Let's move," Tony said, glad they were on the same wavelength. They slipped out the back, hearts racing as they maneuvered through dark, narrow paths, blending with the night surrounding them. With every step, hope battled fear, and Tony felt an ever-growing urgency to see them all safe. As they reached the docks, anxiety washed over him like icy water. "Which way?" he said, scanning the boats lined up, some rusted, some ready for the taking. "That one." Danny pointed to a modest fishing boat bobbing lightly in the water. "It looks like it's still seaworthy." The group jumped aboard, rapidly searching for supplies. Just as they untied the ropes, the sound of sirens blared nearby, slicing through the night's stillness. Panic surged again, but with it came a fierce determination. "Start the engine," Tony shouted, gripping the wheel as Laura and Danny scrambled to help. With a sputter and a roar, the engine came to life. Relief washed over them, but it was short-lived. Headlights mounted, a shimmer turned sharper. Mark's cars screeched to a halt nearby, silhouettes spilling from them like a whirlpool of chaos. "We can't stay," Sarah cried, peering out the side. "Tony, we have to move. Go. Now," he bellowed, and Danny shoved the throttle forward, the boat lurching into the calm waters, the night air now laced with panic and resolve. As they surged away from the docks, Tony's heart skipped. They were free. Finally facing the open water, a sense of relief rushed over him. But the shadows of their past chased them still. All of them had their battles to fight. "Stay focused," he urged, glancing back at Sarah. The fresh winds of freedom whipped through their hair, the salt tangy in the air. "We're escaping everything that's haunted us." "Together, Danny," echoed, the unity brightening the resolve that had flickered in them all. As the full moon illuminated their path, new possibilities emerged. They would not just hide from their past, but face it, together, and carve their futures from the lessons learned. They had come so far, and there would be storms ahead, but now, they faced the unknown in unison, hearts filled with courage and determination. This was their moment to redefine everything. And just as the horizon began to glow with the first light of dawn, Tony whispered softly, "We're free." A new chapter lay before them. And it was going to be extraordinary. Now, as this powerful story comes to a close, there's a vital moment that demands your attention. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will redefine your understanding of bravery and resilience. Leave a like now. Your support feeds the algorithm and helps us continue to create the content you love. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. What a ride it has been. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the strength and inspiration far and wide.